But one of the things I really want to let you guys know is that this stuff is an expression of what we do naturally as human beings. And it's an expression of our birthright. You know, about 10 years ago, I was living in London, and all my life I'd been kind of interested in, thought I'd like to do a martial art. And I'd kind of got into spirituality, and I thought, you know what, I'd love to do a martial art that's a spiritual martial art. And so I looked around, and I had Aikido recommended to me, because very spiritual, long tradition, lots of ritual and that associated with it. And I started studying it, and I studied it for 6 months, and I hated it. Every minute of it. And then I got injured after 6 months, and I never went back to it. And I didn't go back to martial arts for many, many years. And then I thought, you know, I still really want to do it. I really want to kind of connect with that warrior energy and do that stuff. So a friend of mine was a karate trainer. And I said, would you teach me karate? And he said, sure. You know, karate, long history, lots of ritual, lots of, you know, philosophy behind it. And I'd been doing it for about 2 months, hating every minute of it. And I said, mate, how long was it before you started to enjoy this? And he said, oh, I started enjoying it from the very first time. He said, and I was like, oh. And he made a really good point. He said, the more you enjoy doing something, the more you're going to do it. The more naturally motivated you're going to be. So I quit doing karate because I couldn't stand it. And then probably 2 months later, I had a guy on one of my training courses. And I'd been doing an affirmation in the interim, saying, I'm so happy and grateful that I found an exercise that I just love doing, found some kind of activity I love doing. And so I'd affirmed that every day and then kind of let it go. And this guy said to me, he said, oh man, you should come on my martial arts course. I said, what is it? He said, it's this Israeli martial art called Krav Maga. And something in me just went, yes. And I was like, oh, cool. So I flew to Dublin where the course was happening. And it was a Saturday morning, room full of people, and all these people are of all kinds of different skill levels. Some of them had been doing martial arts for years. Some of them, it was the first experience of, you know, like doing a self-defense course and that sort of thing. And at the beginning of the course, he said, okay, wherever you're starting from today, he said, by the end of tomorrow, you're going to be amazed at what you can do. And he started telling us about Krav Maga. He said it hadn't been around for very long. It had been invented during the last century by a guy called Emil Lichtenfeld, who lived in Bratislava. And he was a Jewish guy, and he was teaching the Jewish populace how to defend themselves against the Nazi gangs and so on. And he was a boxer and a wrestler, but he found that the things that he'd been learning in the, highly structured environment of, the boxing ring and the wrestling ring, that they didn't actually work in rough going in the street. And so he started developing a set of techniques based on, and this I thought was very interesting, based on what people did naturally anyway, their natural responses, the natural physiological responses to a situation. And he started teaching these techniques to the people that he was working with. And it became very, very successful. He ended up then working with the Haganah, which was the Israeli underground army. And then when Israel became a state, he became the hand-to-hand combat instructor for the Israeli army. And it's continued to evolve and develop. But the interesting thing is, rather than saying, here's the set of routines and you must do it like this every time and working to create the exact same kind of thing, they really, really recognize that everybody's different, that we've all got our own particular and unique physiology and neurological responses to things. So the technique that works very well for one person may not work for the next person, or may have to be adjusted. And this is one of the things I really like about it. It's highly improvisational. So yeah, you start off by doing routines and drills so that you can kind of get the steps into the muscle, so to speak. But then you make it your own. That's what it's about. It's about making it your own. And so what I found was that because it's something that was very personalizable and improvisational and this sort of thing, it just really lit something up inside of me, and I just loved it. And sure enough, by the end of the second day, I was blown away by how far we'd come. And I've been doing it ever since. And the funny thing is, in the past, I'd always had to try and motivate myself to do stuff. But with this stuff, it's just like looking for opportunities to do it every day, not going out and beating people up and stuff, because it's very much only to be used when the situation calls for it. But I'm not having to motivate myself to go and train. It's just like it's more like you're being pulled towards doing this stuff rather than having to push yourself.